Hello friend, today we are going to learn how to do some Arabic calligraphy. We're going to be writing the word love in Arabic. We're using some watercolor paper, brushes, some paint, as well as pencil and an eraser obviously. So go ahead and grab your supplies and let's get started. All right, so jumping right in, the first thing that we're going to be doing is mapping out our canvas. So essentially what you want to do is you want to find the middle point of your paper. So for this art piece, I am using a 6" by 6" watercolor paper. Therefore, I'm kind of marking the 3" point on each side and then figuring out the center. The other thing that I want to be really mindful of is I want my artwork in the center. So a good way to perhaps do that is by creating some type of margins of pushing the letters kind of towards the center. So I'm going to be using 1" margins on each of these sides. All right, so the next step is to start off by sketching the 3 letters. Now you spell love in Arabic with an alif, ha, and ba. One of the things, a couple of pointers I want to address here is the alif is not a straight line, and oftentimes people draw it as a straight line and start looking kind of wonky. But what you really want to do is have it slightly tilted and then thin out at the bottom. Now, traditional thuluth Arabic calligraphy is done at, I believe it's about a 45 angle degree. So you're basically creating that same width as I did here. The next thing I want to do is create the ha and ba. I should have done this earlier where I kind of write ha and ba first and then kind of estimate the width and the height of alif. That will kind of help map it out, but I do want to accentuate the ba, kind of give it a little bit length to it. So that's what we're going to be doing. And then similarly to that, when you're creating the outline and the thicker and the thinner strokes, be mindful that, again, think of it as you're holding a 45-degree angle. What shapes would this be making? So it thins out when maybe you're going up, and then it's much thicker when you're moving horizontally. All right, now that we are done with that, we're gonna go ahead and dive into the colorful, fun part that I personally love, which is the watercolor. Here's my palette. It's kind of empty right now because I'm making some room for new paints that are coming in the mail. I'm super pumped for those. I'll share them when I get them, but essentially distributed my palette with warm and light colors, and it could definitely be better organized. But what we're going to be working with is the blue colors. So I have actually 3 different shades of blue on my palette that we're going to be using. And what I want to do is first focus on the background of our artwork and then start moving towards coloring in the calligraphy itself. So the first things first, here there's 3 different types of brushes I'm using. I'm using a size 6 brush, size 5 brush, and size 0 brush, I believe. I'll link them all in the description below. So we're gonna go ahead and start practicing the strokes for flower. So essentially what you wanna be doing here, the type of movements you want here, is you wanna start off very light-handed and then press down and use the belly of the brush to kind of give it a bit more width. One of the other things to really remember, and people often make a mistake, is that they don't add enough water to the brush. Now, adding water, removing water, you don't want to create puddles on your paper because it definitely distorts the paper, but you also don't want to have so much water in your brush that the colors are just not light enough. So that's why it's nice to have a paper towel on the side to kind of dab the extra water off. So as you can see, we're making our way, we're adding all the finishing touches to the flowers now. One good thing to remember is to create a variance. Use different intensity of the color. So you don't want it all to be one blue. You want it to be different values of blue. So you can do that by adding more water, dipping your brush in some water, wiping off the excess water, and then going in and continuing to do that stroke. So again, starting off with a light touch on the paper and then pressing down a little bit more to create a belly and then swoop it up like a hook. And then that kind of gives you the dimension of the petal that we'd like to see. All right, so now we're going to be adding another type of flower to our piece of art. Here I was being a bit more strategic in choosing the colors, and in general this is something you'd want to do. So I chose purple because purple is next to blue on the color wheel, and that kind of creates a bit of a calming effect. You want your eyes to be relaxed. You don't want too much contrast on your photo, at least the artwork that I'm creating right now. And similar to the blue flower that we painted, this is going to be made in a bit of a similar way. Again, you're touching your brush on the paper very lightly and then drawing the color out. The other thing you want to remember is that with loose watercolor florals, you want to leave some white space in between just so the mind can get some time to finish up the artwork, if that makes sense. But there's definitely a lot of flexibility. You don't have to complete the flower, or otherwise you're just going to be left with tons of blobs, and nobody likes that. Okay, so now that we have some purple on our composition, I'm gonna go in and add some leaves. So the way you wanna draw your leaves is very similar to the petals that we've been creating. It always starts with a light touch on the piece of paper and then a gradual press down and lift. So here you can see we're creating different angled, almost teardrop-like leaves. And I'm using a variety of shapes and values. So very similar to our other flowers, changing up the value, adding a bit more blue to the green or a bit more yellow. And if you're struggling with deciding like what color to add to green to lighten it or darken it up, think about the two colors that actually make the color green, the two primary colors, which is blue and yellow, right? So you want to play around with mixing those colors to kind of get different hues of green. And then again, as you're cleaning up your composition, you might realize like, hey, maybe I want to add some purple on this corner. I want to add, more leaves on this other side. Continue building it, continue going around and changing it up. All right, so I'm basically done with majority of the flowers. I just want to let them dry. Now is when I'm actually gonna go in and start painting in the calligraphy that we did. And I'm using a brown color instead of a black because I feel like I kind of wanted to give the impression of like the branches being the shape of ohib. So that's why I wanted to choose a brown color, and I felt like black just would be a bit too dark for the concept I had in my mind. So that's what I'm doing here, just adding some brown shades in here and I'm gonna let it dry for a bit and then come back and assess what are some other things I want to add to my composition. And really take your time with this. You want your strokes to be precise. You don't want to paint out of the line. So just take your time, take it easy, and just enjoy the process. All right, so my camera died a bit and I didn't realize it and I just kept on painting. But this is what the final color looks like. As you can see, after some time, I let the artwork dry, and then I added the black dots in the center and then the yellow dots in the center of the purple flowers to kind of just tie in the composition together. It was a lot of fun creating this and kind of getting this idea onto paper. That's always very, very fun and exciting. I really hope that you enjoyed this YouTube video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the subscribe button and give me a like. And with that, I'll catch you next time.